Good morning, everyone. We just thought we'd mix it up a little bit. I'm not actually Barry from Defence Housing, I'm Ben from Be Online Learning, but I'm here to introduce our good friends at Defence Housing, and Barry in particular, who's going to be speaking to you this morning and kick off LearnX 2015. So welcome everyone, hope you enjoy the conference and hope to see you out at the stand just outside the door if you have any questions of Be Online Learning, who we are and what we do. But other than that, Barry?
Thank you. I'm on. Welcome everybody. It was nice today. I actually got out of bed and it was warm. I'm from Canberra, and when I get out of bed it's like stepping into a fridge. So I'm enjoying this warmer weather. When we came down yesterday, we saw people in the corner sitting there freezing like this, and we thought, it's not cold. But yeah, my name's Barry Moore. I'm from Defence Housing Australia. I work in the Learning and Development Department. I've been there about 2 years. And I look after a lot of the e-learning and the learning management system. I do some of the e-learning development. Over here, sitting down here, is my boss, Mark. He's here to make sure I behave myself. Basically, they don't let me out on my own. But I'll get on with it. I guess what my presentation is about, if you're not aware, it's about what we did with LearnFlex as our learning management system, and I'll take you through the bit of the history of why, how, and when we implemented it, and lucky enough to win an award. Okay, so DHA has about 650 employees, 16 regional offices, and some of those just have 2 employees in them. Obviously, we house defence people, so we need to have offices all around Australia where those people are. We have 4 contact centres throughout Australia. I guess pre-2012, the L&D function was decentralised. There wasn't really an L&D team. For instance, Mark and I it didn't exist then at DHA. Had ad hoc planning, low attendance rates, we had poor record keeping. 2012 was when they decided to centralise it, and they actually recruited an L&D team, brought Mark in. Mark brought me in. Sorry about that, Mark, but you know. We had one budget and we had an improved strategy, so we actually started to have an L&D strategy. What actually then happened was that DHA then required accurate record keeping. If you're going to spend the money on having an L&D department, you've got to have some way of, you know, recording what you do and look at your value you're adding to the organisation. We need efficient delivery to regions, so how do we deliver efficiently to regions? Ability to deliver internal, and also ability to deliver external. DHA uses a lot of contractors. We build whole communities, so we have a lot of construction, we have maintenance on our homes, we have cleaners that clean our offices, a whole gambit of contractors, so we needed to work out how to manage them as well. Between 2012 and 2014, our offerings grew. So all of a sudden we had a whole array of e-learning modules, we had a whole array of courses around leadership, management, personal development, communication. We needed to train our contractors. So in DHA Work Health and Safety, so that was about 3,000 of them that we had to, or actually there's probably more now, that we needed to train. And we had to do it with a small team. Our current team is L&D Manager Mark. I'll say soft skills. I know a lot of people don't like that term, but I guess it was just easy to use, so sorry about that. One e-learning developer in myself, and we've got one administrator who also helps me with the e-learning development and management. So that's really the challenge that we had once we started growing. Okay, what we needed was a utility to upload and manage SCORM custom content without vendor assistance, so we wouldn't be self-reliant on that. Capability to manage course registrations for all the e-learning media types. Ability to staff to enrol in the course. Registration approval workflow. So we need to make sure that if people register for a course, it could flow through to their managers, get approval and so on. Flexibility in reporting, that was very important for us. Controlled access, including our external users. So we wanted to give access to our external users, but we didn't want them to be able to see everything that we have and do. And we need to integrate it with our HR system. Our HR system is called Orion. so we wanted to integrate with that system. How we went about it, we first of all sat down and we did some research on learning management systems, ones we've had experience with and some of the other ones in the market, and looked at what functionality do we need. So what do we need right now and what might we need in the future? So that was the first step that we took. We then identified, then we went out and we did some testing of the market. We found that CASA, which is another government agency, have actually had just installed LearnFlex. So we actually went to CASA, we met with them, we discussed LearnFlex with them, we looked at their whole process, their whole tendering process, and looked at their outcome. And then basically under the whole government arrangement, we then decided that we would also go with LearnFlex. They'd done all the work for us, so we figured, well, you know, we'll just go with LearnFlex, and that's how we actually ended up making that final decision. We did look at others, but we found that LearnFlex met all our requirements and then some, so we decided that was probably our best option. One of the things we had to make, the first decision, this is an important decision you need to make when you're looking at anything like this, is do we want to host it internally or do we want to host it externally? We decided to go external because it was a faster implementation. We weren't reliant on our IT department who are already swamped with new system implementations. One-stop support. That's proven to be a real benefit to us, is that we go to one place for all our issues. Not that we have many, but we do. And it made it easier for our external contractors. We didn't have to worry about firewalls and all those sorts of things that you do. And of course, it was lower cost and less resources to implement. So it just made the whole thing much easier to host it externally versus internally. The first thing we had to decide is the setup of it. So how do we want to set up our LearnFlex? We'd come up with two communities, one external, one internal. The external community, we gather data from our contractor system that goes into LearnFlex. So we have every contracting company set up as a business unit in our LearnFlex. The contractors log in using a contractor ID, and we figure that when they log in with that, what happens then, it ties them to that business unit. And they actually set up their own account. Now I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. We have our internal community, which is our staff. They are automatically set up. When they're created in our HR system, overnight it passes that information across to LearnFlex and they are instantly created in our system. That will then also actually automatically enrol them into a Learn track, which is for all our new starters, where they get all their compliance modules and induction modules that they have to do when they first start with DHA. There was probably three key things we had to think a lot about when we implemented our learning management system, and that was around security, so cohort, you know, administrators, users, and so on. Communities, you know, and as I said, we come up with two, and our business units. Basically, when it comes to security, we found LearnFlex was very good in its flexibility there. So we had a user called an external contractor. We have a DHA employees. I'm probably standing in front of that screen, aren't I? System administrators, L&D administrators, and managers. The managers was, that's where our managers, if they get assigned to that, they can then see a report on their staff. So we needed to make sure that our managers could be self-reliant in terms of their training of their staff and monitoring that, because really in the end they should be accountable and responsible for their training of their staff, as should their staff be responsible for themselves. So our managers, we need to work out how our managers could get a report on their staff only and not other people, not the whole organisation. So that's where that cohort came in, and now our managers can go in and run a report anytime they like, but it will only show them the staff that report to them. I guess that's just showing a bit of the hierarchy of how it actually works. Yeah, I think I've already mentioned that. We went with 2 communities. The business unit structure had to reflect our structure that's in our organisation. So in order to do that, we need to make sure it could work with our HR system, with Orion. And we needed automatic setup of new users. We needed update of existing data. So what happens is, for example, we needed that when staff left, we needed the LMS system to reflect the fact that they're not at the organisation anymore. So we had to work with Be Online to work out how that would work. And basically what happens now is when someone leaves, the HR system says they're inactive. It feeds to the LMS, they become inactive. And therefore they're in our system, but we know that they're not active, and when we pull reports, we can exclude them from our reports. And obviously we have regular imports of data of staff and external users, so we get all our contractors in there. The other really important thing when we implemented the LMS is DHA, as you saw, was not very advanced in terms of its learning and development, and implementing a learning management system in an organisation like ours, we had to be very careful. The first thing we wanted to make sure was that was something that looked good but also looked friendly to use. It was really important. And I'll talk a bit more about it in a couple of slides, but this is where our marketing communications people came into play. And I'll talk a bit more about the importance of that in a couple of slides. But as you can see, we had an easy to read and follow menu bar. We have a slider, so actually when they go to our LMS, we have sliders that go across advertising our courses. There's a quick search option for them. So this is basically the landing page that our staff come to. And they have their My Learning, so they can look at what they've done so far, what they've completed, what they haven't. We have a page where they can register, so self-register for courses. So we had to make sure that staff could actually go in and self-register. Based on the hierarchy in our HR system, that's fed into the learning management system. Based on that, it will then workflow the request to their manager to authorise, but also then to us, we can look at it and go, yes, this person is a suitable candidate for this course. Because our LMS doesn't just manage our e-learning, it manages all of our training. So it manages all our leadership courses and all those sorts of things. So staff want to enrol in those, they can. The other really good thing about this is if staff go in and they find they can't, what happens if they go in and we don't have any sessions that suit them? So we had to think about, one of our learning management system, can we actually get them to do a session request? We've LearnFlex, yes, we were able to do that. So they can actually request a session. So what usually will happen is we'll find that maybe our contact centre up in the Hunter might want a course on something, a couple of them, so they'll request a session, and then we can work out, well, can we run that up there and create a session for them? Okay, this is the My Learning tab. So we need to make sure it was pretty clean, not cluttered, so they could easily see what they're doing. Our previous learning management system that we only used for e-learning was very cluttered, and it really was difficult for staff to see what they needed to do. So we needed to keep it quite simple. And this page is where they can actually launch their e-learning from. So they just click the launch button and away it goes. The uploading of an e-learning program into LearnFlex takes a minute. It's very quick. And then they'll launch it from here. They can also cancel out of courses. It's an option you can give them to do, or you can turn it off, whichever way. But we also have a section that's called My History, and this is where they can go in and see what they've completed. No matter what delivery medium we've used, all their training and what they've completed will be there. If it happens to be an e-learning module, it sits there and they can relaunch it any time they like. So they can always go back in and redo a module. We've had managers who've requested their staff to redo a module for some performance issue or something. So let's go into their My History and launch that module. So that was another key feature we implemented. In the implementation, the important thing was, that we could actually pilot it and test the thing before we sent it to the masses. The good thing about LearnFlex and working with Be Online is they have a really good pre-production area, which is not always the case with some of these LMSs. And we'll be able to do a lot of extensive usability testing. We tested it on our own corporate affairs area before we sent it out to the masses. And that was really important, that we got all the bugs out and we made sure that our interface design was very user-friendly. And that's really important with your learning management system, because the first time they hit that page, they want to see something that is recognisable, which is our brand, and is easy to use. Otherwise, you're going to turn them off straight away. We worked with key stakeholders, so we identified our key stakeholders and did a lot of work with those key stakeholders to sell the benefits of the LearnFlex and for them and their staff and so on. We put a lot of effort into that and to get them excited about it. And it was a big step for us, so we did take it a bit slow. And this is where I mentioned before about marketing and communications. We started our communications a long way out. We started selling the benefits a long way out. I don't say a long way out, but a few months before we actually implemented the learning management system, we kept it in their minds all the time, and we worked with the marketing and comms people. We utilised the existing channels that have been effective in terms of communication in DHA. We worked closely with Be Online around the customisation. This is where marketing and comms really helped us out, and work with Be Online on the look and feel and the colour. It was really important. And as I said, it was important that staff got met with something familiar. It looked very much like our own intranet page. So there's that familiarity that helps the take-up of the system. One of the things we did deliberately was, you don't want to launch a learning management system, particularly in an organisation like ours where they didn't really have one, and just launch it and say it's here. We wanted to make people use it. So we launched it with a couple of key compliance modules that everybody had to do. So from day one, everybody had to go into that learning management system and do something. And that's really important, that you launch it with something that people have to do. They were small compliance modules, they were e-learning modules, they were about 15 to 20 minutes, simple, easy, and that's really was one of our secrets to it taking off so well and its usage levels going so high. We didn't communicate all the functionality. For instance, we didn't really tell the managers how they could do their reporting initially. We only had a couple of modules, it wasn't relevant, we didn't want to confuse people. So we kept it very simple, go in there and launch. We didn't talk too much about self-registration. That as people got used to it and were using it, we built that up and we started introducing them to more functionality. The benefits, cost effective. Prior to LearnFlex, we had 2 full-time admin staff managing our training, our reporting, our bookings. We now have 1, and that one person also helps me develop e-learning. Managers and staff now come to us. They can see our offerings. In the learning management system, we have all our offerings. They can see it. They can self-register. We have them coming to us now as a preferred supplier. In DHA, they don't have a lot of choice. They will in the future, but we are the first port they come to now, where before they wouldn't. We would put on a course and we'd give guesswork how many would turn up. 10, 2 turn up. The course really isn't effective unless they had 5, so we then run a course and it's not value for money. Now they can let us know, communicate to us through the LMS on how that happens. So, and obviously more staff that attend training, the more productive they are. We wanted to make sure our learning management system could automatically enrol people. So this is where we really liked the whole LearnFlex. where it has automatically, we can set up a learn track. So what happens is, as soon as someone starts, as I said earlier, they get all their compliance modules, they get their induction modules, and so on. We also have, the other ability we have here is the reporting. The reporting is, it's awesome. I love it. It's so easy and so good and so flexible in building your own reports. So we also have a face-to-face component of our induction. We can't just automatically enrol people because managers want to be consulted and with times and so on. But what we do every week, we get a report that tells us who our new starters are in the organisation. We don't need to go to HR and get that report. We get it ourselves. And then immediately, Leah, who looks after our very good induction program, she will contact their managers and say, you've got this new starter, can I book them into the induction, the face-to-face induction course? And so it's very beneficial in that way. They actually get an email, the new starter gets a nice welcoming email that's automatically generated out of LearnFlex and giving them instructions on how to access the LearnFlex and the training that they need to do. They get that as soon as they're created in there. We really don't need to do much at all. Our external users. This is one of the things we really needed to get right with our LMS. We have a lot of contractors under the new WHS regime that came in about 2 or 3 years ago. We need to give them training. We need to give them, we're a unique organisation in what we do, and there's some uniqueness to our work health and safety. So we need to build a module and then give the contractors access to that. LearnFlex allowed us to do that. And I think I mentioned before how we have their business in the system. They then can go in and create their own account. Each individual contractor, so even if it's a subcontracting company, every employee will go in, they'll use their own email address and they are identified uniquely but connected to that organisation that they work for. They do the module. When they say complete the module, we needed to say, well, how do we know that they've done it? Well, yeah, I can pull a report. But when our WHS officers are on site, how do they know that person's done their training? Because if they haven't done their WHS training, DHA training, they're not supposed to be on site. So we were able to work with Be Online and LearnFlex and come up with a solution to that issue when we implemented it. And that solution was that they get an email with their name in it that says they've completed the module. When our WHS officer goes out and they're on site, they say, show me that email. If they don't show them, they've got to get off site. So it was a huge benefit to us. And we have had over 3,000 individual people, contractors, do that training. And I can pull reports anytime I like. We're soon going to actually, the other thing we did too was our property managers go out on their own sometimes. So we've got these special security devices that basically if they fall over, have a heart attack, the device will go off and contact the centre and help will arrive. If they're being attacked, they can pull the pin. How long have I got? 5. They'll pull the pin and it'll alert them. We did not want these people to get this device until they knew how to use it. So by having a learning management system, we were able to actually set it up so that we could see who had completed it. I sent the report to the WHS team. They would see who's completed it and then they would give them their device. Shortly, we're going to implement our real estate. We do use some real estate agents. We're going to import them into LearnFlex because I'm going to be building a module for them for managing certain properties. So we're now going to be able to actually train our real estates in our process and have access through LearnFlex. The real impact, I think, is here. Completion of training prior to this was about 46%. We're now up in the 80% and growing. So our completion rates have massively increased. So that tells us that we've pretty much got it right in terms of how we implemented it. If you look at some of the usage numbers here, we've got 150 e-learning modules. We've got 20 different workshops, face-to-face courses, and that's growing. 3,000 contractors, 797 active users. Just on that, the way it works is, with our contractors, once they do their training, after a period of time, they're made inactive. So it's not a license we're using. So that's a very good benefit to us. Keeps our costs down. Total number of completed courses in a year and a half, 15,000, over 15,000. We get weekly, fortnightly, and monthly automatically generated reports. So that's where we can really see that the implementation, we got it right because the usage is really high. And our staff, we get a lot of positive feedback about the learning management system. So I guess that's what we did, why we did it, how we did it. I hope it might help some of you who are looking to implement a learning management system, or those that have already got one and you've got some issues. So yes, but any questions? Yes?
If you had to do it all over again, what lessons did you learn with the implementation?
Well, the difficult thing in the beginning was understanding the structure within LearnFlex and getting that right. And so just recently we've gone back and redone that. So we've redone the things like the you classify your courses and their subjects and things like that. So we've made some changes there. And probably around the manager's access. Yeah.
The other thing we probably would look at doing next time is making sure that we have workflow right in our HR system.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we'll push that a bit harder to get that sorted out quickly, because that is critical for getting the workflow working in the LMS, because that comes from the HR system.
Yeah, that's an important thing. Yes.
Just wondering, does the LMS maintain the content for your courses, particularly courses other than the online stuff? So, the resources, course facilitators and stuff like that?
You can, yes. So we actually, a lot of our face-to-face stuff is delivered by external providers. So we have them in there. We have and have listed who does it. So yeah, we can do that. Any other questions? No?
Sorry, just on the workflows.
Yep.
Any specific workflows you're talking about?
I guess who reports to who.
Two, yeah.
As Barry mentioned about the reporting, it's critical to make sure that management can see people in their area of business. If that's not set up correctly in the HR system, it does make it harder to map it out.
Yeah, a lot around reporting, but also authorisations. Just to give you an example, unfortunately, the way that our structure is set up is we have regional centres, and in those regional centres, we used to call them HMCs, and property managers. Now, you'd have a regional director who managed both groups. The way our HR system is set up as two separate groups. So if a manager wants to go and report on those two groups, just one report on one group, they can't. They can't see both groups because of the way the structure is in our HR system, which they're working on right now. But as Mark said, just something we've learnt as we've gone along that we should have put more effort into working with HR on that structure.
Just another one on the workflow.
Yep.
Have you come across where you've got like dotted lines in, and that the dotted line manager needs to report on that person as well? Like,
Yeah, it's probably similar to what Barry outlined in terms of the regional offices with property managers and housing staff. There are always going to be those sort of places. You may be able to do something through CMS record, or I know that obviously online are moving to using crystal reporting to give much more flexibility rather than that to be able to handle those sort of
Yeah, I think there's some exciting stuff happening with getting crystal reporting out, and yeah, and as Mark said, I think that's going to help us a lot. And it'll help a lot when our HR system get the reporting a bit better in it.
can I probably ask, it's probably a bit more of an IT question. But I work for a global company now, right? So we've got Asia Pac region and we've got the US region. And a lot of people now are reporting into the US, but they're not set up on they're not in our region. If that manager wanted to report on someone, would they be able to get access to the LMS system to be able to do that? Yes, they do.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of getting them set up into that structure.
Yeah. So I've set up external people to get stuff.
Is that you probably have an email reports. I have they've done directly to the
Yeah.
So us as a report that on email their access.
Yeah. I've just been given that. Thanks, mate.
on behalf of Be Online Learning, thank Barry and Mark so much for coming up and doing this presentation for us this morning. It obviously helps us in promoting our brand, but we really love working with these guys and they've been amazing for us. And with this, if there are any other questions around the learning management system, feel free to come out and chat with us. Even if you're not looking at LearnX, you're looking at something else, we're more than happy just to discuss learning management systems, how they work, and what you need to think about when you're doing that sort of implementation. So again, enjoy the conference, and hope to see you over the course of the day. Thanks.